For years, the Golden State Warriors have been making decisions with one eye on the future, while Stephen Curry spent some of the best seasons of his career waiting for a real championship-caliber roster to be built around him. Now, someone inside the organization has finally said out loud what many fans have been thinking all along. The Warriors got it wrong. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into everything today, that like button right there is what decides if this video hits hundreds or thousands of people. 1 second is all it takes, but the impact on this channel is massive. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it's the simplest thing you can do. And honestly, the best way to back this content up, because every single like pushes us further. So hit it now. According to ESPN reporter Anthony Slater, a team source admitted that trading from Golden State's stockpile of future first-round draft picks to bring in win-now players is something that should have been done 4 years ago. That direct acknowledgement from someone within the organization is a significant admission, one that puts into sharp focus just how much time and opportunity has been wasted during what should have been the final prime years of the greatest shooter in NBA history. 4 years ago, the Warriors had just won their 4th championship in 8 seasons. Curry was playing at an elite level. The team had young assets that carried real trade value, and the front office had every opportunity to reload quickly and compete for more titles. Instead, they chose a different path, one focused on developing young players and preserving future assets, and that decision has produced painful results. Since their 2022 championship, Golden State has posted 2 second-round exits and missed the playoffs entirely on 2 separate occasions. For a franchise with Curry at its core, that record represents a profound failure to maximize what should have been a golden window of contention. The clearest example of mismanagement during this period involved James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga, 2 young players who held significant trade value in the summer following the 2022 title. At that point, either one could have been packaged with other assets to bring in a proven, impactful veteran who could have immediately strengthened the roster around Curry. Instead, the Warriors gave Wiseman a full opportunity as the starting center heading into the 2022-23 season. He struggled badly out of the gate, and his trade value collapsed almost immediately. When Golden State eventually moved him, the return was disappointing. They received Gary Payton II, a player they could have simply re-signed in free agency the prior summer at reasonable cost. That decision alone represented a significant organizational miscalculation. The Kuminga situation played out differently, but ended just as badly. Throughout the 2022-23 season, reports circulated that the Warriors had chances to deal him, most notably at the trade deadline in 2023, when pairing him with other assets that had potentially landed them OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. That deal never happened because the organization still believed in Kuminga's long-term potential and was unwilling to part ways with him at that stage. The Warriors held on to Kuminga through multiple additional seasons, watching his trade value shift up and down as his development remained inconsistent. By the time they finally traded him at the 2026 deadline, his value had eroded considerably from its peak. What could have been a prime asset in a blockbuster deal ended up delivering a modest return at best. What makes this sequence of decisions so difficult to accept is how clear the alternative path was. The NBA is a window league. Championship opportunities are time-sensitive, tied to the primes of star players. Curry turned 38 years old this offseason, and while he remains one of the most dangerous offensive players in the league, questions about sustainability are now legitimate. He missed 39 games this past season due to injury, which added another layer of uncertainty to the franchise's near-term planning. The source's quote carries an implicit acknowledgement that the window has narrowed. Trading multiple future first-round picks to acquire a star today is a fundamentally different proposition than it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. The risk-reward calculation has shifted. Back then, Curry was 34 or 35 and seemingly bulletproof. Today, with injury history and age becoming real factors, committing a large portion of future draft capital feels more dangerous. That said, doing nothing and watching Curry's final competitive years fade away in mediocrity is not an acceptable outcome either. General Manager Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Team Governor Joe Lacob still have decisions to make. The Warriors retain all their future first-round picks, which gives them genuine flexibility and leverage in any trade conversation. Names like Kawhi Leonard and Trey Murphy III have been mentioned as potential targets. But the honest reality is that the franchise is operating in a tighter window now than it needed to be. An organization built around one of the most extraordinary players in NBA history should have maximized every season of his prime. The source's admission is welcome, but it comes years too late to undo the damage already done. It was widely assumed across the NBA world that Draymond Green would pass on his $27.7 million player option this offseason, decline the one-year deal, and then negotiate a fresh multi-year contract with the Golden State Warriors. That assumption turned out to be wrong. According to ESPN's Anthony Slater, the current expectation inside the league is that Green will exercise the option and lock himself in for one more season at that salary. The decision reshapes the Warriors' entire summer in ways that reach well beyond just one player's contract. The most immediate and dramatic consequence of Green's choice is what it does to Golden State's pursuit of LeBron James. Slater reported that the Warriors believe James is likely to return to the Los Angeles Lakers, but that if he were to become available, the franchise would want to offer him the non-taxpayer mid-level exception worth approximately $15 million for the 2026-27 season. The problem is that using the NTMLE would hard cap Golden State at the first apron threshold of $209 million for all roster commitments. With Green earning $27.7 million, Stephen Curry at $62.6 million, and Jimmy Butler at $56.8 million already locked in, the math becomes extremely difficult very quickly. Adding James at $15 million brings the total to roughly $162 million across just 4 players, and once Moses Moody at $12.5 million, the 11th overall pick at around $6.1 million, Guay Santos at $4.6 million, and Will Richard at $2.2 million are factored in, the Warriors would already be approaching $188 million, with only 8 roster spots filled. If veteran center Al Horford exercises his own player option, that number jumps to approximately $194 million with 9 players. That would leave Golden State with almost nothing to fill the remaining 5 spots on a standard NBA roster, making any meaningful additions nearly impossible under the hard cap. In this scenario, re-signing Kristaps Porzingis becomes essentially unworkable, which matters enormously because the 7'2" center is widely expected to be a key part of the team's plans for next season. The conclusion is uncomfortable but clear. Green opting in effectively signals that LeBron James will not be a Warrior. For that dream scenario to have had any chance, Green would have needed to accept a meaningful pay reduction to create financial flexibility. By exercising the full option, he has made his own financial priorities clear, and the dominoes fall accordingly. With the LeBron path closed, attention shifts to what kind of team Golden State can realistically build. Slater reported that re-signing Porzingis is an expectation within the organization, though the exact salary range was not specified. If Porzingis lands a contract in the $15 million range, the Warriors would almost certainly find themselves unable to use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception regardless, which means they would be working with the smaller taxpayer MLE of $6.1 million, a number that hard caps them at the second apron threshold of $222 million instead. Operating above the first apron comes with real restrictions. Teams in that salary zone face limitations on trade aggregation, reduced draft pick flexibility, and constraints on adding veteran players. However, there is one notable upside to accepting an over first apron situation. The Warriors would no longer need to sacrifice one of their draft picks just to stay under a specific cap threshold. That arithmetic opens an interesting door. Before Slater's report clarified Green's plans, there had been skepticism about Golden State pursuing a second first-round selection in the 2026 draft. The concern was that 2 rookie salaries would make staying under the first apron nearly impossible. But if the Warriors are already likely to exceed that threshold through Green and Porzingis, there may no longer be a compelling reason to hold back. Teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, Charlotte Hornets, and Atlanta Hawks all hold multiple first-round picks in this year's draft, and Golden State could potentially approach one of those organizations about acquiring a second selection in exchange for a future protected first-rounder. With both Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody expected to miss significant portions of next season recovering from their respective injuries, the Warriors will have meaningful playing time available for young players. Drafting twice in the first round would accelerate the team's youth development and give the front office more options to evaluate. As for Green himself, this decision likely marks the beginning of the end of his Warriors tenure. He is 36 years old and coming off what many viewed as his worst statistical season in over a decade. At that age, with that trajectory, it is difficult to envision more than 1 or 2 productive seasons remaining. By exercising the option rather than signing a multi-year extension, Green is, in a sense, forcing a natural endpoint. Once the 2026-27 season concludes, he will become a free agent and the Warriors will face no obligation to bring him back. The Golden State Warriors are making serious moves in their pre-draft evaluation process. With the 11th overall selection in the 2026 NBA draft approaching, the franchise has already brought Michigan forward Yaxel Lendeborg in for a workout and is widely expected to target him as one of its top options. Now, according to ESPN's Anthony Slater, 3 more prospects are set to visit Chase Center on Thursday. Arizona shooting guard Braden Burries, Alabama point guard Fillen Jr., and Washington center Hannah Steinbach. All 3 represent genuine competition to land that draft slot, and each brings a completely different profile to the table. Burries has already been analyzed as a potential fit for Golden State's wing needs, but Thursday's workout will serve as an important in-person evaluation alongside 2 new names. Let's focus on what Fillen and Steinbach each bring to the conversation and what their candidacies tell us about the Warriors' thinking heading into draft night. Fillen Jr. is one of the most intriguing offensive prospects available at this stage of the draft. The 20-year-old Alabama guard averaged 22.0 points and 5.0 assists per game as a sophomore, numbers that would have put him firmly in the top 5 conversation had everything else about his profile matched his production. His skill set is legitimately advanced. He operates as a primary ball handler in pick-and-roll situations with a level of comfort that goes well beyond his age, and he demonstrated shooting consistency by connecting on 39.9% of his three-point attempts this past college season. For a team with Stephen Curry at the helm, adding a young guard who understands how to operate with the ball and who can knock down perimeter shots is a logical target. Fillen would ideally develop in a backup role behind Curry, absorbing lessons from the greatest shooter in NBA history while gradually earning more responsibilities. The concern with Fillen, however, is not about his game film. It's about his physical measurements. He checked in at the draft combine standing just 6 foot, 2.5 inches tall, and weighing only 176 pounds. His weight was particularly disappointing to evaluators because he did not add any noticeable strength from his freshman to sophomore season. In a league where point guards face physical defensive pressure every night, carrying so little mass at that height is a legitimate concern about durability and defensive effectiveness at the next level. His vertical leap of 35 inches added to the worry. Guards of his height typically compensate for a size disadvantage with elite athleticism. For comparison, prospect Kingston Fleming stands the same height as Fillen, but recorded a 40.5-inch vertical at the combine, while Abuka Okri, who is even shorter at 6 foot, 1.25, measured a 37.5-inch vertical. Fillen's athleticism simply does not offset his size the way scouts hope to see when projecting shorter guards to succeed in the NBA. Still, the historical parallel everyone will raise is Stephen Curry himself, who faced significant skepticism about his size and athleticism coming out of college, and proceeded to become arguably the most influential offensive player of his generation. Placing Fillen in an environment where he can study Curry's preparation, footwork, and decision-making from the inside could prove enormously valuable. The fit is far from a sure thing, but the potential is undeniably there. Hannes Steinbach offers an entirely different proposition. The Washington center stands 6 foot, 10.25 inches tall, with a 7 foot, 2.25 wingspan, giving him the physical frame to play legitimate center minutes in the NBA. His most dominant college attribute was rebounding. He paced the entire nation with an average of 11.8 rebounds per game this past season, a staggering number that showcases elite instincts, effort, and physical leverage around the basket. He paired that with 18.5 points per game, scoring primarily through post-ups, putback opportunities, and quality hands in the paint when catching entry passes. One notable gap in Steinbach's game, however, is shot blocking. Despite his size and length, he averaged just 1.2 block shots per game with Washington, a number that raises questions about his timing and rim protection instincts at the professional level. That is a kind of defensive liability that tend to be exposed quickly against NBA-caliber big men. His perimeter shooting is another area that needs development. He attempted 53 three-pointers during his college career and converted 34% of them. Not bad, but not the kind of floor spacing number that makes modern NBA teams excited. In today's league, centers who cannot threaten defenses from the perimeter face significant challenges fitting alongside other non-shooters in a lineup. For the Warriors specifically, who have been prioritizing 5-out offensive schemes in recent years, Steinbach's profile feels like a slight mismatch. Golden State has shown a preference for big men who can step outside and create spacing for Curry and their guard to operate. A more traditional paint-based big like Steinbach runs counter to that philosophy, unless he demonstrates genuine improvement as a shooter during Thursday's Chase Center workout. One excellent workout has changed draft board before, and the pick is still weeks away.